Hi, John Maxwell here. On July 4th, my father passed away. And what I'm going to do is share with you a tribute to my dad. And it's the lessons that he taught me. He lived for 98 years and 8 months. Another lesson that I learned from my father, my gosh, what a huge lesson this one was. This one stayed with me throughout my life. They all have, but my father, he introduced me to How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. As you know, my father picked out books for me to read when I was a kid. And if you've read How to Win Friends and Influence People, I assume you have. Hello. Can you really go through life and not read that book? Because it is, to me, the relationship Bible. Simple, basic principles on relationships. And Dale Carnegie said the sweetest sound to a person's ear is the sound of their name. And so Dale Carnegie emphasized the importance of remembering names, and my father was really good at it. And when I was a junior in high school, we went and took a Dale Carnegie course on remembering names. I'll never forget it. It was my dad and I took it together, and how they had us back then. I don't even know how Dale Carnegie teaches it now, but how they taught it back then was that what you did is you put a visual object on their head that would relate to their name. So I'm just, for example, if I met you and your name was, let's say, John Water, okay? Well, then what I would do is I would put water right on top of your head. I would put a visual picture of water right there. And so I would visually see water on your head so that when I saw you next, I would call you John Water. I remember one time, speaking of water, I was going to my new church in Lancaster, Ohio, and had hundreds of people to learn their names pretty quick. And I met the first day I met a wonderful couple named the Hargis family. And soon as they said Hargis, I grew up near a lake that was called Hargis Lake. And I thought, oh man, I got this one nailed. And so I put a lake right on top of their head. And the next week when they came back to church, I was so confident. I just reached out my hand and said, well, how are Mr. and Mrs. Lake today? I'll never forget, they looked at me and they looked at each other. And of course, immediately I realized, oops, I missed that one. And I said, oh, I'm sorry. What was your name? They said Hargis. Of course, then I laughed. I told them the Hargis Lake story. So it's not a foolproof, but here's what I do know. My father impressed upon me that the name is the sweetest sound of a person's ear, and that immediately when I get it, if I can visualize something and put it on top of the head so that I can remember their name. When I was pastoring in my last congregation in San Diego, California, a large church, I knew over 3,000 people by name. In fact, I would tell them when they came to church, now you got to go back to 1991, 2, 3. Those were the Polaroid days with cameras. And I had, maybe every week 50 to 60 hostesses running around the campus. And they all had a way to identify themselves as a host or a hostess, and they had a Polaroid camera. And I would tell first-time people, just let them take a picture of you. And if you'll let them take a picture of you, when you come back next week, I'll call you by name. Now, this was massive. And that's what they do. They would take pictures of our new people. And on Monday morning, by 10 o'clock in my office on my desk would be a big key ring with a bunch of Polaroid pictures that are punched out all in that ring with the names of each people at the bottom of the picture. And during the week, I had 5-minute break, I'd pull over that ring and with all those pictures, and I would look at the picture, I'd look at the name, picture the name, and I would memorize those names. And this just caught the attention of people. I'd say two things. I said, if you'll let's take your picture, I'll do two things. One is I'll know your name when you come back, and number two is I'll pray for you. And I would look at those pictures and I would pray for those people. I remember one Sunday, I was out in the lobby area, and there was a new couple who'd been there the week before, and I went up and I called them by name, and the wife just jumped up and down. She was so excited. I thought, oh my gosh, why are you so excited? She said, I just want to bet. So I bet my husband $10 that you'd remember our names because you said you would last week. And he said, no, he won't remember us. And she said, I just wanted to bet. Thank you for remembering our names. And I said, is that true to him? He said, yeah. He said, yeah. We had a bet. And I said, then you need to give her $10. And I'm here to witness this. And so he got a $10 bill and he handed it to her. And I said, now, my name is John and we teach tithe at the church. I need $1 from that profit you made. And we both laughed and we both howled. But my dad just taught me to remember names. And that's another way of telling a person that you just greatly, greatly value them. Remembering names.